we have, of course, lots of interesting protocols, and basically, what I put up over the weekend is I start putting up all the videos for the wellness videos, which has more information than just the wellness conditions. They're over at our Vimeo pay-per-view channel, so you can actually pay for like $3 to watch a video that explains about hypertension or congestive heart failure. I'll be revising and upgrading them to include PowerPoints, video material, as well as medical references and more advanced things. And we're going to also have a higher level channel, a higher level of videos that'll be we call professional grade. These will be for doctors, surgeons, dentists, whatever. But if you're interested in it, you can purchase them as well. But they're going to include even more information. So if you're a biological dentist or a neurosurgeon or a plastic surgeon or whatever, if you incorporate these technologies into your practice, you're going to be a better doctor. So it's not, I don't like to use the term alternative medicine. This is functional medicine, which is like living pathology. So it is basically applying the principles of biochemistry, epigenetics, which I hear other yahoos out there saying they're going to teach epigenetics. Yaha, really. You're going to teach epigenetics when you've got no background in this. It's extremely complicated and extremely simple at the same time. And if you haven't got advanced nutraceuticals and technology, you can't possibly change someone's epigenetics, including special peptides that alter your DNA or even stem cell transplants. So let's talk about the next type of consult I have. I often will do what's called a QRMA test. I just have one from a lady, we'll call her Jay, and what her test showed, and then I'll tell you what I did for her as recommendations. Her test showed in her QRMA that her gastric peristalsis was low, which means she needs IBS care. She may also need GastroHeal, which is zinc carnosine, if she's got some form of acid reflux from dysbiosis of her esophagus and lower gastroesophageal sphincter. So she'll be on IBS care to restore peristalsis at a proper tertiary wave. And she also had dysbiosis, so she needs probiotics, living probiotic. Her rheumatology coefficient was moderately elevated, so she needs Inflamex because of her size, just 4 capsules twice a day, and Cell Defense Plus. Her minerals were low, and this, by the way, the QRMA will actually tell you your test results are copper and zinc were low, so she needs Vitamineral Max and Minerals Plus. She may also need an additional bit of copper Regenimax along with her zinc copper ratio, 10-to-1 ratio in the Minerals Plus if her copper is real low. And by the way, when your copper is low, it's going to increase superoxide dismutase deficiencies that put you at risk of diabetes. Collagen's low, skin low, Collagen Max, a capsule twice a day. Vitamins low includes low levels of activated B6, vitamin C, and vitamin E. So she needs BioLVR, Power C Plus, and Gamma E Plus. Eye cell activity is moderately high, so she's got increased free radical going on in her eyes, so she needs Vision Max. And she's got some heavy metals, lead, moderately high heavy metal lead, which is, by the way, one of the most common you'll see. If you see someone with real high levels of lead, it's often ambient things because of pollution. If you see real high levels of cadmium, it's got a purchase from having a previous root canal. And her dysbiotic index is real high, which indicates she needs Living Probiotic and Living Probiotic Ultra every third day. So, Ryan, let's touch on some of these. And literally all she had to do was send me a history and her compressed file of her QRMA, and I can tell her these recommendations. And we can retest her at home, because once they have a machine at home, they recontest in 3 months. And if they really want blood, urine, stool, and other tests, I can give recommendations that they can order. The test gets through lab testing direct or other labs, like we have some new ones now. You order the kit, it arrives at your home. You can go to LabCorp, Quest, or even have a mobile blood tech come to your home. And if it's just stool or saliva tests, like for hormones or for gut dysbiosis, you can just send the kit off yourself. And when you get the results, and make sure they send a copy to me, and then I can give an interpretation and tell you exactly what to do. So you can become Dr. You by incorporating, that's what's in the book, the QRMA and functional medicine. And by the way, these things, if a regular doctor, chiropractor, naturopath, or MD incorporates, I'll help train them case by case and make them a better doctor. And they will learn that if you don't incorporate functional medicine, you are going to lose your practice to doctors that learn this technology. You're going to lose it. If you don't, I don't care what you are. If you're an obstetrician and you're not giving activated folic acid to all your pregnant women, you are doing a disservice to them. As soon as they're pregnant, the moment they're pregnant, they should be on superfolate and BioLVR and iron like our ferritin, and things to maintain collagen and magnesium and calcium magnesium like our bone generator. and micelle D3. I mean, it's almost evil to not give the right things to support proper pregnancy, like the activated form of folic acid. So, Ryan, can we run through some of these? Inflamax and Cell Defense Plus for arthritis.
Yeah. Well, Inflamax is a very neat formulation. It's a proteolytic enzyme formulation that is really beneficial. It could be used in acute challenges with the body, and as well as more chronic or long-term challenges. But a lot of people, that have been stuck using, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, they're really not getting to solve a lot of the challenges that the body's facing. They're just kind of, we've said many times, putting black tape over the warning lights on the dashboard. And so digging a little deeper.
Yeah, and the non-steroidals, by the way, will really screw you up. They'll dry out your joints, so although you don't have pain, you're getting eventually bone-on-bone or eburnation. And you'll eventually end up with tendon ligament ruptures or rotator cuff tears because you destroy the ability to create collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid. You'll actually get subclinical tears of your rotator cuff and ruptures of ligaments, and you're not even aware that you're ready to pop. And they did a study on professional athletes in the NBA and National Football League, and they found 78% of the pro athletes had tears sufficient in their rotator cuffs that they should have had some form of even major or minor surgery to fix it before it fully ruptures. Interesting, eh? 78%, that's 2 years ago study. So next one, Cell Defense Plus. This is our new launch, super, I call DNA modulator, biophoton amplifier, probably one of the most remarkable tissue regenerators and protectants for your brain, blood vessels, nerves, especially if you're diabetic or have an autoimmune disease or you've had cancer. This even gets rid of cancer mother cells. We call it cancer stem cells. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's a new upgrade to what's already been a very successful formula in the medical line.
The Cell Defense has been very good, but the plus means there's a new technology layer that's even more advanced than the Cell Defense.
Exactly. And so, greater bioavailability of the material. It's a material that's not just a curcumin extract, but literally due to a very unique and patented extraction process, still maintains like its essential oils and many other cofactors and components that you look for in nature. So you can overcome some of the absorption issues or bioavailability issues. And two, it's also got this propensity to stay in the blood more than twice as long as a curcumin extract, which is, again, that's so critical for whether or not a nutraceutical is really going to do its job in the body effectively.
By the way, this also is why the curcumin cream, along with pregnenolone, the 1-2 punch for stimulating healing of say, psoriasis or a skin sunburn or a chronic dermatitis of, say, besides using things like Silver 100 spray in the skin for acne and taking orally Allicin Med and Nutridyne, you want to put the curcumin cream on with pregnenolone if you've got ongoing skin lesions that just won't heal. It's amazing how the combination of curcumin, which is a DNA epigenetic modulator, and the pregnenolone, which is an anti-inflammatory, will heal it. Now, of course, we're talking about minerals. Vitamin Mineral Max and Minerals Plus, these are essential to get your minerals up. And you can add indiamines to act as a chaperone to bring in the mineral levels even higher in the cell and the nucleolus, which is the center of where the nucleus is of the cell. So, really important. And it's amazing how common people are low in collagen. And collagen is, they may or may not know this, but collagen was called the structural protein of every tissue in the body, and there's 29 different subtypes of collagen. But it also is the primary biophoton superhighway for your DNA to be stimulated to actually switch the stem cells to actually differentiate into different organs like your kidney, heart, and brain. So in other words, you build a superstructure first, and then you lay on the cells, and the cells differentiate because of the biophotons in that superstructure actually tell the cells what to do. Interesting, eh? And they've been doing this ghost organ research at the University of Wisconsin and at the Regenerative Center in Wake Forest, North Carolina, which I've been in contact with because I'm trying to get them to make a surgical version of our Mountain Red Velvet. So you can put an intravenous version in nanoparticles, an IV or version, granules or sheets, and of course a new oral version that will deliver to the small bowel so it goes into my cells, which makes it even more effective. But I tell people Collagen Max is really essential if you're going to heal and regenerate your tissues, and it does everything. Collagen for your bones, for your tissues, your skin, hair, nails, hyaluronic acid polymer for your joints, and plump up your skin so you don't see wrinkles. and the hyaluronic acid polymer in your joints and also in your eyeballs. Important stuff. She also, by the way, showed levels of vitamin B6 low, and it's very common. There's up to about 20-30% of the population has a B6 polymorphism, and if you have that, you're at higher risk of developing organic dementia and diabetes. And when somebody wants to really do a thorough analysis, I tell them to do a Prometheus analysis of their 23andMe, and then I look at their gene SNPs. And they say, how do you know all this stuff? I said, because I'm a tinker. I said, if you came to my studio, you'd see I have a laboratory here. Lots of neat stuff. Which, once in a while, we'll get some people that come by. But you have to be the gatekeeper of Michelle before you can do that. Not everybody is allowed to visit the lab. So, next is vitamins. Of course, we talked about Power C Plus. This is not anybody else's vitamin C. This is not your grandma's vitamin C. This is a salt of sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, ascorbate with bioperin to increase absorption 40%. So, Invale says they have vitamin C equivalent. This is not buffered vitamin C. It is actual neutral pH. And then, of course, Gamma E Plus with tocotrienols. This will get rid of the nitroperoxy radical, which is a primary thing that is upregulated when your brain's on fire or your blood vessels. So, if you want to reduce it, the Gamma E Plus is really important for protecting the brain and the blood vessel walls. And then, of course, their eye cell activity was High Cell Vision Max. We've got to protect our eyes. And a lot of people don't realize that the level of high-energy ultraviolet light nowadays is much higher. At much higher rate you see the left eye, because people drive during the daytime. Up to 3/4 of first cataracts are in the left eye because the left eye is exposed to the nearest side to the driver's side window. Interesting, hey?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the lens eye. A lot of people think, well, I wonder why I'm not healthy. Well, you would not be amazed at how many people have high levels of heavy metals, and not just things like lead and mercury, but heavy metals that are weird ones like uranium. I only drink well water. It's so clean. I think, really? So where do you live? And they tell me, I live in the Northeast United States, or I live in Boulder. And I'm thinking, not surprising if I do a hair analysis on you or a packed red cell analysis through Genova Labs or doctor's data, I'm going to find a nuclear magnetic spectroscopy that you actually have a lot of uranium in you because you're drinking uranium-laced water. They think, my God, Dr. Deagle, no wonder I don't feel great. So Keeler Max, and we can augment that with our ultra-liquid zeolite, but Keeler Max is amazing, and I really don't like what I call rapid IV chelation. I really don't like it. It screws people up big time. And even the Myers cocktail won't replace all the minerals lost when you start doing really heavy IV chelation. Bad idea. So Keeler Max, if you start on it, people say, how long should I take it, Doc? Well, you're going to take an intense dosage until we see your levels drop on your QRMA or your packed red cell test into a reasonable range. But you're going to need to take a heavy metal chelator for the rest of your life, maybe at a low dosage or maybe just periodically every so many months. But it's not something you stop because we're living in a toxic world. There's heavy metal radiotoxins now from Fukushima. There's heavy metals in your water and that are happening because the water is not clean. So it's a big deal. And then most people don't realize that dysbiosis will make you fat, diabetic, and turn on autoimmune diseases. So this lady's going to need to take Living Probiotic and Living Probiotic Ultra because she's a sitting duck for her dysbiosis deconjugating toxins that her liver's conjugated, and that will cause bowel cancer. It'll cause breast cancer. Most people realize if you get deconjugating bacteria in your lower gut, those biotoxins are already going to go out in your stool, and the next bowel movement aren't going out in the stool. They're getting remobilized into your bloodstream because the bacteria are re-releasing them. Weird, hey?
Yeah, that is weird.
How many doctors do you think know that?
Very few.
Very few. How about maybe 1 in 10,000? And the only ones that are trained in the Academy of Anti-Aging, Environmental, and Advancement of Medicine. I tell people, do not suffer allopathic medical doctors. Do not. If you can, convert them to get them to at least incorporate 1 or 2 practices in their practice. But they need to get out of their old paradigm ways. They're harming people with just doing toxic polypharmacy. Their bailiwick of tools that they have in their tool chest to help make you stay well is so small they can't help you. They don't know what the disease cause is. They don't know how to intervene. They don't know the biochemistry or the pathology or the immunology of the disease. And as a result, because they can't even test it to see if you got a dysbiotic bowel that's really releasing toxins, or they can't measure your fat biopsy or red blood cell membrane to look at the heavy metal toxins with gas chromatography. So they have no idea that your re-releasing toxins are going to give you breast cancer. So when I see these breast cancer awareness months and so on, I think, okay, the very first thing you need to do for breast cancer, number one, is take adequate levels of Nutrimedical. But the second thing you do is make sure you fix your bowels, because your dysbiotic bowel is going to give you breast cancer. Interesting, hey?
Yeah.
Your glandular tissue, your prostate in males, your breast in females, and other glandular tissues act as a filter. And if you don't get those deconjugating bacteria out of your lower gut with Living Probiotic and Living Probiotic Ultra and colon cleanse, it'll clean out the garbage out of your bowel without taking a high colonic at a colon therapist, you're just asking to get cancer. I mean, duh. I mean, how many cancer doctors are even telling their patients, by the way, your bowel's screwed up, this is going to give you cancer? None. Not good for business. You don't want to tell them that, man. They won't show up with their cancer. I am sarcastic, but it's facts. I mean, people don't realize that I'm like I would call a mixed medical martial artist. I punch through the target. I don't play with it. Unfortunately. Unfortunate for those who are my victims, like these. And I don't need to say dumb, I say uninformed and uncaring doctors. Cataracts, Vision Max, Cell Detox Glutathione, Omega Supreme Krill. Let's talk about these for a minute. If you got cataracts, can't see eye drops, really, really important. You don't need cataracts nowadays, but with the environment and increased levels of UV, B, C, and D, A will tan you, B will burn you, C will give you cancer, and D is so powerful it will reach the side of a building. And the amount of high energy light went from 23% 24 years ago to over 73% as UV, B, C, and D. And levels of high energy X-rays and gamma rays in deep space are actually much higher now than they were a decade ago or even in modern history over the last century. So we're getting blasted, and people don't know that, and that's why cataracts are increasing and why people are exposed to a lot of what I call space weather that's toxic. But they're not aware, and their doctors don't tell them. COPD. Let's see, Allison Med, and of course Cell Detox Glutathione. And I tell people, even take the Cell Detox Glutathione, crush the tablets, and use them in an Amron or My Pure Mist. And I'm going to set up a link too, so when people can't find these, I'll have an Amazon link to where you can find them on our website of the specific devices that I recommend. My Pure Mist and the Amron are good, and in what's called the Sinupulse Elite has a little clear blue tip that you can use for inhalation as well. So COPD is really easy to treat. You have to kill off the pathogen to stimulate the lung tissue to regenerate. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I had a question of somebody about fertility. You can measure levels of hormones over 28 days with saliva tests through Genova Labs. You can also look at the QRMA. It'll pick up all kinds of hormone and other imbalances in your body. And the first thing I think with PMS is femgestrone cream and DHEA and pregnenolone to support the adrenal glands and the decrease in progesterone. And when that progesterone level drops, you get an increase in inflammatory cytokines called prostaglandin E2 and F2 alpha that make your joints inflamed, your brain inflamed, your tissues swell up, your ankles swell up, whatever. Your bowels go nuts. So simply taking DHEA, pregnenolone, and femgestrone will make an amazing difference. So, Ryan, can we talk about femgestrone for a minute?
Yeah, the femgestrone formulation is what makes it nice is the delivery is topical application. So I can help people with absorption and utilization of it.
Yeah.
As you said, this is an area that, in many cases, obviously, with your consultation and advice, that can be very helpful for a lot of women.
Yeah, and you can actually do a saliva test that gives you a very concrete level. And I tell people, never take injections, never take pellets. Believe it or not, there's some doctors talking about putting pellets or beads in their skin. It's like, are you nuts? And some of these are forms that are actually going to form what I call, like for estrogen, 16-hydroxyestrone addicts. And we know they dramatically increase the risk of breast cancer. But they still do it. And we've had this research going back over 30 years. We've known this. And doctors still do it. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So you want natural hormone production by your body with the proper supporting nutraceuticals. You don't want synthetics. And if you contact us, we will provide you free an email starter protocol anywhere in the world. If you are a regular customer, you can get access to phone calls, and anybody can purchase a consult to help them with their serious health condition. And by the way, I integrate advanced medicine with the natural functional medicine, so that it may involve medical advice, surgical advice, and other advice, legal advice as well. So I'm available for all of those services. And so Ryan, let's talk about the next issue, hypertension. One of the first things that I tell people is there's certain drugs you don't want to take for hypertension. You want to get off diuretics because it increases blood sugar problems. Use the diuretics of Vein-Away and Power C+. They'll pull off the extra fluid. Take our Cardiovasc, and of course the first thing to do is stop calcium channel blockers. The research on them shown that it'll actually cause shrinkage of your brain away from the calvarium of your skull, believe it or not, and lower your IQ over 5 years up to 30 to 50 points. So do not take calcium channel blockers like amlodipine. We used to have one years ago called Plendil. We used to call it Plenty of Edema. So let's talk about it. Supernox, which is very important to reduce nitric oxide, CoQ10 Supreme, and magnesium glycinate. These are kind of core to get your blood pressure down. And I recommend also BioLVR, because the BioLVR will help your body make tetrahydrobiopterin. If you need even more, you can add some beet juice powder, but I recommend Samethyl, a sachet once or twice a day of the Samethyl will increase your ability to make what's called the nitric oxide synthase enzymes, is to make nitric oxide so your blood vessels pump your blood around your body. So, Ryan, let's talk about these for a moment. Supernox, CoQ10, magnesium glycinate, BioLVR, and Samethyl. I think maybe Ryan may be gone. Okay, maybe, yeah. So, Ryan, are you there? Well, I'll just continue until we get Ryan. He may not think we're still on break. Basically, Cardiovasc is going to help your endothelium, prevent plaque, etc. Supernox is a special form that produces nitric oxide, but it also has specific components to prevent you from getting the bad side of nitric oxide, which is nitroperoxy radical. And VascuCare, which is our propionyl L-carnitine, along with CoQ10 Supreme and CoQ10 ubiquinol. The VascuCare is a special form of carnitine that's slow release in a tablet, 333 milligrams, twice to 3 times a day. And then CoQ10 Supreme and CoQ10 ubiquinol, a couple of soft gels of each in the morning is going to dramatically change your ability for your heart to pump. And when you get increased perfusion, the reflexes that cause your blood pressure to go up will increase. Also, to relax your nervous system, the brain mag and calm mind for the central nervous system, and what's called mood elevator or Posonal will help to calm your nervous system down, because a lot of time the blood pressure is partly autonomic, because your autonomic nervous system perceives low perfusion, so it tends to drive up your driving pressure of your heart, trying to pump against basically resistance, because your blood vessels are not doing their job. It's almost like the guy that's running, say, a job on a job site gets down out of the truck and starts trying to do the job of all his workers because they're not working. Well, he can't do the job. So the heart starts to fail after a while. And this is what causes, eventually, hypertension causes heart failure, renal failure, brain failure, and increases the risk of getting thickening of the muscular layer of the blood vessels, and also dissection of blood vessel walls like aortic dissection or carotid artery dissection, which can be very catastrophic. And also damage to the nephrons in the kidney. So hypertension is deadly. We're looking at new technology. We may be also putting up a Nutrimedical one. It's called a BioCough that measures not only your blood pressure but also your arterial stiffness. And it's a good way of measuring in different categories if you're getting better. The next test up from that is the EndoPat and Endothelix test, and there's doctors around the country that can do that for you. You can do the test at their office, and it's a non-invasive test. The average charge is about, even without insurance, is about $150 to $200. And they'll tell you if you've got endothelial wall dysfunction. So the best way of measuring that, without going to the expensive test you can do every week to see if it's improving, is simply a QRMA machine. I like the QRMA, it's better. It looks at the biophoton signature of your body and compares it to a giant database. Back in a moment, we'll be talking to Fareed, and then top of the hour, David John Oates on reverse speech, and we'll have cameo guest coming in, Jim GUERCI, and some research we've been doing. You can call and place yours that way or online at Nutrimedical.com. As you say, we have lots of new services. We're joined with Fareed, and we're talking about how to maintain your cardiovascular health, which is a primary killer of people in America, and disabler of people is cardiovascular illness. Fareed, if you were to summarize why people are getting so much cardiovascular illness, what would you say are the causes?
Well, I mean, it's there's so many causes. The obvious one is a North American diet, and rich in trans fats and all sorts of other nasty stuff. And you combine that with a sedentary lifestyle, and and we're all guilty of it. I'm not going to tell you that I lead a perfect lifestyle, but that's why we came up with cardiovascular. The reality of it is none of us are perfect, and we need to take supplements to help us along.
Right. So in other words, what it does, it helps make us slightly more perfect than we were. Being sedentary, eating foods that have pro-inflammatory fatty acids and mineral deficiencies, and things that make us form plaque. One of the things that we have is we have these new tests now. I got a new device that I'm going to actually post up on Nutrimedical that we're going to get a link to called a BioCuff. And it's a step in between going to the endopat and endothelics, which you can measure at home every day. Your blood pressure, but also measures your arterial stiffness. And I think what people should start to grasp is that your circulation counts. If you have poor circulation, it puts you not only at risk of autoimmune disease, but cancer. And vascular illnesses are dramatically tied directly to diabetes, increased levels of pro-inflammatory fatty acids, mineral deficiencies, especially magnesium and potassium, and things like selenium and chromium that make you diabetic or unable to get rid of free radicals. What cardiovascular does is basically prevent plaque, balance your autonomic nervous system, prevent the calcification of artery walls, and improve microcirculation. So in other words, it's your endothelial vascular protection program. So, Fareed, can you give us, let's go through some of the components, but I want to touch on some of the newer studies now that are coming out in terms of what causes heart disease.
Sure. Well, the cardiovascular is a combination of 7 ingredients, formula developed by my dad, and Dad being a now retired pharmacist who trained and educated in Germany. And as part of his pharmacist training in Germany, he studied pharmacognosy, which is just a fancy way of saying the study of medicinal plants. So he had 5 years of that, and then he took that tradition with him to Canada, and after 30 years of clinical practice, he was approached in 1999 by the Collation Society of Alberta to develop a product for heart health and circulation, and that's how the formula came about. And so the one of the main key components of cardiovasc is hawthorn, and we use a hawthorn leaf and flower extract standardized to Vitexin in the capsule form.
Now, of course, the Vitexin is going to increase cardiac contractility, mitochondrial function. We call it a cardiotonic formula. Let's go to the next one.
So we have aged garlic, 1% allicin.
That's going to be a natural ACE inhibitor and a killer of nanobacteria that are necessary to form plaque by taking free iron or heavy metals and oxidizing cholesterol to 9-noronyl hydroxycholesterol and fatty acids. So you end up with oxidized fatty acid globules that the macrophages, big eater cells, eat, and they die and become foam cells, which are the primary nidus of plaque. They produce soluble ICAM 1 and 2. They increase levels of C-reactive protein and Pi1, and they attract fibrin and platelets to form layers of plaque that eventually, if it calcifies in a high-speed CT with a calcium score, you can actually, it's 12% more accurate than even a pharmacological treadmill test or a regular treadmill test to look for cardiac perfusion problems. And the number of people that have mild cardiac perfusion problems is pretty significant. If you're hypertensive, if you have a high-speed CT scan that's abnormal, you already have spasm of arteries at different times of the day. You may not even be aware are spasming because you may not have nausea or chest pain. That's disturbing, isn't it? Even no symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And not even shortness of breath.
So,
yeah.
So some of the other components in cardiovasc, one of the key ones is cayenne.
And cayenne, of course, is going to increase what we call microcirculation by vasodilating blood vessels. And then, of course, the bilberry is a natural dialysable antioxidant that it was going to protect against free radical singlet oxygen, hydroperoxy, and nitroperoxy radicals, along with our other nutraceuticals we give, like ME+. But cardiovascular is very important because the biggest problem we have is we call poor circulation is tied to virtually all illness, including autoimmune disease, infection, and cancer. Microperfusion disorders, so I tell people when tissues go anaerobic, they get sick. And in fact, it switches from high energy state where one glucose molecule makes 32 ATP down to one glucose molecule through anaerobic glycolysis only generates 2 ATP. So your energy level drops, your electron density drops in the cytochromes, your levels of acidity increases dramatically, and the tissues basically don't have the energy or the ability to fight intracellular pathogens, and the tissues start to manufacture abnormal gene control, which turns to cancer or produces proteins on the outside that can cause autoimmune illnesses. So whenever tissues get also in a low redox state, they can't stop unopposed calcium activity, and as a result, you end up with calcified plaque in arteries. So we now know exactly what causes all these things, and they're all tied back to the same process. Poor perfusion leads to pretty well every illness you can imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, let's talk about how you can measure this. You can do if you have a relative, for example, that has some transitory vision loss and maybe some circulatory problems in their brain. You can do a SPECT blood flow scan with a radiologist. You can do a high-speed CT with a calcium score all the way from the circle of Willis in your brain to your heart, to your blood vessels, to your kidneys, and your iliac vessels to your legs. You can measure lipid electrophoresis, which is far more accurate than the typical nuclear magnetic spectroscopy your doctor orders through LabCorp or Quest. You can measure other markers like Pi1. You can do a rheologic blood viscosity test because whenever you're forming plaque, you have basically more viscous blood. And one of the things that cardiovascular does as well is reduce blood viscosity. So it works very nicely with nattokinase to reduce the chances of ever forming a clot or an embolus, which is a clot that shoots down the blood vessel. So that's a big deal. Have you had some interesting testimonials? Because I've had people tell me, starting with their brain, hey, my memory's working better. Number 2, my athletic performance is improving. Number 3, my bowels are working better and I'm healing faster from injuries. Number 4, I don't have as much pain. Number 5, they mention if they've had a disease like diabetes, they seem to be healing better and faster from their illness than they were before. So whatever other nutraceuticals you're taking, if you add cardiovascular, it makes a big difference in terms of your speed and your trajectory of healing. It's quite a bit different, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And really, if you think about it, I mean, circulation is key. My dad used to say in German, circulation is known as Kreislauf. And he used to say, Kreislauf ist alles, which translated to English, that means circulation is everything. It's key to making everything else work. So.
Now, of course, in years ago, they developed what's called a capillary Blanche test, where you simply press the nail bed. Now we have the endopatent endothelix and this other test, which is called a biocuff. Blood perfusion is very important, and what I tell people is that they don't understand if you were able to do, let's say you could do a perfusion scan of someone's whole body. What you'd find is the areas where they're not perfusing properly is where they're going to get disease, whether it's breast cancer, vision loss, dementia, or heart disease. If you see a specific part of a blood vessel wall, for example, and you're getting poor perfusion to parts of the vessel wall, that's where the vessel is going to spasm and form plaque. So a perfusion study would be parallel to a free radical study, which would be parallel to an acidity study. So if you could use an ascending marker analysis with color grade scales, you could actually see that someone, one of the things that Linus Pauling thought of is what's called a field ion scanner that looks at the harmonic frequencies of tissues, and you can actually see where tissues are acid or not. And it would be based on electron density and frequency. I presented an idea to a radiologist in LA about 4.5 years ago about how to build a field ion scanner, which would take a lot of money. I mean, you'd have to have some big sugar daddy saying, Dr. Digo, go for it. But it would actually be the ultimate Star Trek device. You put somebody in it, it would tell you everything that's going on in their body right down to their subcellular levels. And the closest we have to that now is a bioplasm expert in clinical from the Russian Academy that we do have for sale, actually, a Chinese version right now, and I can log onto it in TeamViewer 10 and actually do tissue cuts right down to individual cells and right down to even parts of your chromosomes and molecules. That's available right now. It's very time consuming though, because a full test takes about 2 hours. And then if I log on to TeamViewer 10, it takes a long time to analyze the data. So it'd be very, very expensive. I usually tell people, let's do some other tests that are less invasive and expensive. So, circulation. Now, one of the other things we're seeing is that the current healthcare system doesn't really want to address these things, does it? And we talked about this before. You're diabetic, and you take things, and you're always scoring really well on your tests because you're a glider pilot. And the reason is you're not having the typical trajectory of a diabetic, where you're starting to lose your vision or your reflexes or getting circulatory issues, because you're taking the right nutraceuticals like Cardiovasc, that it's going to reverse and prevent those things from happening. I tell people whether it's your vision on the back of your eye and you're trying to protect your vision, or whether it's your legs, because 1 in 20 males over age 40 has a 93% plus blockage of one major artery to their lower leg. That's a lot. I mean, 5% of males over 40 have one leg with the artery blocked to their lower leg. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And do you think the average doctor even knows how to diagnose it? Because the patient may say, once in a while if I'm going uphill I get a cramp in my leg. Cramp in their leg is they never did what's called a NEVA scan, a non-invasive arterial and venous study. And if you do that study, it'll show you, then you go back and do a high-resolution B-scan ultrasound, and you'll say, oh my gosh, look at that blocked artery. And of course, if they do an arteriogram, they'll see the artery's blocked enough, and the surgeons start smacking their jaws like a Rottweiler ready to eat some raw meat. Oh my gosh, look at that, man. I'm going to make the payments on the bigger boat. The bigger boat payments, right? And people laugh and they say, Dr. Deagle, you're just being sarcastic, pain in the butt. I said, no, but I'm telling you the truth too at the same time. I mean, it's scary, but it also is also funny. It's funny in a kind of very dark way, but it's true, isn't it?
It is. It's the healthcare system is designed to keep you sick for as long as you can before you die.
Actually, I was thinking about writing a medical version of the Screw Tape Letters with C.S. Lewis, and I liked making voices, so I could do a skit there, somewhat like this. What have you been doing, Satan said? What have you been doing, O minion of me, of Satan? I am working in the medical community, O Satan, and we are succeeding well. We are promoting all kinds of useless therapies and drugs that cause people to bleed out, develop premature illness, and all kinds of new problems. Oh, wonderful. And what about heart disease and other problems? Well, we're not really altering the course of the illness. We're just making sure we maximize profits. And there is a body count, and Satan says, that is so wonderful. There's nothing like having a daily body count when you're progressing in medicine and saying you're the healers. I mean, people say, no, Dr. Deagle, you're exaggerating. I said, yes, if you look at this objectively as a scientist, you say only about 2% of medical literature is even worth reading. And the medical system doesn't want to solve the problems, whether it's MS or heart disease or prevention of cancer or stopping gut dysbiosis to deconjugate toxins that reaccumulate in body tissues causing cancer and autoimmune disease, or someone's circulation shot. Like when we did our study on back in the 1980s, late 1980s in Georgia, looking at the number of people with hypertension that had vascular spasm and STT wave changes on their Holter monitor, some of them on as long as a month. 1/3 to 40% of males over 30 had a major spasm of an artery multiple times during the day, and there were lesser percentages where they got STT wave changes and even arrhythmias, and they were totally unaware that they had serious changes causing vascular spasm even in the middle of the night when they're sleeping. So a lot of people are completely unaware, and their doctor is not doing Holter monitors. Has to say, oh my gosh, look at this. You got an STT wave change between 2 and 215. Did you wake up? No, didn't go to the bathroom or anything. Duh. That's research is now like 1987. We're approaching 29 years ago. Long time. What do you think? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they know this. I mean, the Holter monitoring company we did the research for, they're fully aware of this. Most cardiologists are aware of it. Even when they do a treadmill stress test, they miss 12% of people that are going to go face plant and have a sudden cardiac event. Also, doctors are not aware that if you do a reperfusion, if you open up somebody's blood vessel with a stent, and if somebody had an acute heart attack, you're going to get reperfusion surgeon free radicals, and you're going to get another great big bad heart attack. I call it heart quake, where the free radicals are going to damage a giant area of your muscle, and you may end up with a full cardiac arrest. And they know that. I mean, they don't buffer people after they have their initial heart attack or give them a bolus of something to stop the free radicals, because that's what's driving the zone of injury in their heart. You know, it's not just the initial anoxic injury, it's the free radicals that result afterwards. And if the artery is blocked for a few hours or days, and you reopen it, you're actually going to get a giant surge of free radicals that will cause, in many cases, a sudden cardiac arrest or within hours. Interesting, hey? And what I'm saying is common knowledge. Common knowledge. You don't have to be a genius to figure this out. You have to just observe your own patients. It's not good. So when I see the current system, people say, well, what about naturopaths or chiropractors? They're completely unaware of this. They don't get trained in cardiology. They don't get trained in internal medicine or pathology. They have no idea what we're talking about. They don't know how to read a cardiac fix study of somebody's heart, or a CT scan, or a B-scan ultrasound. They have no freaking idea how to do it. So when they try to see if they can intervene, they don't even know the tests, like rheologic blood tests or, DNA, special markers of oxidative stress and creating plaques in their arteries. They have no way of measuring it. They don't even, it's not in their sphere of expertise. But functional medicine includes everything from chiropractic to herbology to pharmacology to toxic, biophotons assessment like QRMA and bioplasm. And I tell people, do call us. You don't need to get overwhelmed, because some of this stuff sounds pretty overwhelming. Start off with simple things like just take Cardiovasc, take our Supernox, and take magnesium glycinate and the Gamma E+. Just start with those. And your blood pressure is not going to come down. If you've got a calcified plaque, add our full vitamin K2 to reverse the calcified plaque. You don't need to suffer. So thank you for reading. Again, go to the front page of Nutrimedical. We always have specials on of our Cardiovasc. Nutrimedical.com. Put in your order right now, 888-212-8871. Michelle's waiting to pick up your calls and give you the best care. We're back into a short segment now before we bring on our special guest this afternoon, which is going to be David John Oates talking about reverse speech all the way from Australia. And we'll have a quick cameo, too, popping in Jim GUERCI, who's been doing a lot of work with me to get our Deagle-network set up, our live stream channels, our Vimeo channels, and so on. He's an amazing guy. He's really helping us a lot. And again, we have other volunteers. I want to make a couple of announcements. The first is that for those people who've already purchased a QRMA machine, you can get repeat consultations on your immediate family members, yourself, your children, your parents, whatever, cousins. But for those people outside of, quote, immediate family, you can actually run a business. And I tell people, just charge for doing the test itself. Don't say you're going to give any interpretation. And it's only for what we call functional wellness, to determine your nutrient levels and your organ function. You simply will contact me if you want to do this, and I'll give you an abbreviated 2-page summary of our 11-page consultation form, which you have to fill in. They fill in the credit card, because we're going to charge for the evaluation of their QRMA. I need the compressed file and this 2-page form that's scanned and sent to me. And that'll be it. And you can go to a gym, you can set it up in a kiosk, you can do anything. The QRMA is a very neat device because you can measure in 1 minute many hundreds of tests. And what this does is it tells us and points us toward whether you want to do conventional testing, you want to intervene immediately, depending on the history. Some of the history things may say, hey, you need to see a surgeon. Maybe you need to have a different kind of radiological evaluation or blood test or advanced functional medicine test. But the combination of the functional medicine history and the QRMA is amazing how it'll cut through a lot of garbage very quickly and get to the root of underlying problems. So that's available now. And our beta test is Jim, who is doing this in New York. So for those people around the world that have a QRMA machine now, or if you want to acquire one, you can do it as a little side business where you're going to a fitness center and just doing tests or whatever. And I've had a lot of requests over the last year or so I'm opening that up now. What you have to do, though, is you have to have them fill in the forms, sign the releases, and make certain you've got their credit card and contact information, phone, email, Skype, etc. So if we need to, we can contact them to proceed. If we need to go to a next level, which is a consultation, if it's really complex, or I may need more advanced information like medical records, x-rays, MRIs, other things, to give them either a regular medical or a medical legal consultation, because they will do medical legal review of charts as well. So that's going to be very helpful. The latest things on the news, this is a promo before we get started at the top of the hour. The Judge Report has a lot of interesting things. It talks about the media are, of course, leaning. Facebook workers routinely suppress conservative news. That's purposely done, by the way. They promote things like Black Lives Matter and purposely suppress conservative things. And it says at the top of Drudge, it says not leaning in, leaning left. And that's pretty significant. When we come back, we're going to talk with Dave John Oates, and I'm going to get into some areas we haven't talked about before that are preceding the Feast of Pentecost, which is a very important Christian feast. Some new interpretations and some new information that will shock, amaze you, and show you the miraculous state of affairs of what it is to be a real believer, and why there's new information now, because it is the time of the unveiling, otherwise known as the apocalypse. We're there. Like when you're traveling with your kids, are we there yet, Mom and Dad? Yes, we are. We're there. We'll be back in a moment. You don't want to miss hour 3. Do get your orders into Michelle at 888-212-8871. We need your support to stay on the air and expand our services that are free. Take care and God bless.